I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Welcome back to the Millennial Classics Show. My name is Q, and on this channel, we talk about the best and most memorable movies, books, and culture-changing events from our generation. Because we all know when it is Black History Month, folks are always talking about the slavery and the segregation and all of those things. I wanted to talk about a book that wasn't so sad, so horrific, that didn't look at Black folks in such a sad situation. History is history, but I don't constantly have to take that in, especially when it's the month that we're supposed to be celebrating Black folks. There's no reason for us to just only talk about slavery, right? My brother bought me this book for the holidays. This was my gift for this year, and I was like, this is good, this is perfect. Octavia Butler, is it sci-fi? That's my shit. I love it. I'm like, this is positive Black history or Black culture. But god damn it, this book is sad. I mean, god damn. I'm a huge sci-fi guy. That's probably my favorite genre. But I never got into dystopian sci-fi because it's just my pull for sci-fi is this is an amazing piece of technology. Just as what the future of humanity can be. But I read it. Great book. Octavia Butler, she was a superstar, won a Hugo Award for a short story, MacArthur Fellowship, Nebula Award. She sadly did pass away, and I think in her early to mid 50s. This is the first book of a duo. There's a sequel to this, and I'm pretty sure there was supposed to be more, but because her life ended so shortly, we only have the two. I am excited to read the next one. I'm not jumping into the next one because this one is a tough book. It's dystopian at its core and everything around it with just a sprinkle of hope. Just to start off, I like to just go down the list of things that just spoke to me when I read through these books. But one thing that didn't speak to me, one thing that I was a little frustrated by was the pacing. If you are anything like me and expect the story to get moving early on in the book, it doesn't. And of course, I'm going to be spoiling like I always do. The first 5 to 6 chapters is very slow, and it's just a description of the world that they live in. And yes, I am a huge, give me the world, make me fall in love with the world, let me understand this world that you are living in. But I feel like it's a bit tedious, and it took me quite a bit. If this wasn't a gift, I would have stopped and then probably came back to it later on. But I was literally bored for the first few chapters. But once shit started to happen, the main character's brother Lawrence started to run out of the community, I was like, holy shit, this shit's real. So just to give you a quick rundown of what this book is about, Lauren is our main character. She lives in this gated community. Gated is a nice way to put it, like this walled off community. The world has gone to shit. I think climate change has hit as hard as horribly. It's very difficult to get any water. Water is like the most expensive, most important thing ever. And I know if you look at the reviews and if you look at the Reddit page of this book, a lot of people are like, oh, it predicted the future because they talked about a president who said that they wanted to make America great again. I just read the book. It doesn't say that verbatim. I mean, it's very close, but the amount that they talk about the president in this book is like 2-3 paragraphs in the entire book. And it's like just this generic bad politician who says, I am going to do what's best for this country. And obviously he's lying. But that's not the thing that got me to say, holy shit, Octavia Butler was seeing the future. It's just coincidental that I read the book when I read the book, because reading this book, it is based in California. The entire book is in California, and there's fires everywhere. I just think, coincidentally, obviously there's fires that regularly happen. It makes sense that Octavia Butler, even in 1993, was using that as just something to get the story to move. Reading this now, with all of the fires happening, and there's this new drug called pyro, and people are like excited and want to start fires, just enjoy watching things burn, and again, this crazy dystopian future. But where was I? They in this walled off community, they're safe. Her father is a pastor, and they just try to keep this community going as long as possible. They try to save as much food. This community works really well together, and this is the first few chapters, first 5 to 6 chapters. You just learn about this community, how they work, but then shit hits the fan. These pyromaniacs come burn down their community. 90% of everybody from that community ends up either dying or just disappearing. A big part of this book, yes, her father is a preacher, but she is coming up with, and she doesn't even talk about it as coming up with, she talks about it as, you don't invent math, you discover that math is a thing, right? She thinks that she's discovering this new, I want to say religion. It's called Earthseed, and the basis of this religion is God is change, and not only is God change, but the goal of Earthseed is for human beings to reach the stars. She never gets to tell her dad because her dad ends up dying prior to the craziness that happens in the community, and she tries to make this Earthseed thing real. She starts out with 1 or 2 people from the community that didn't die or run away, and then as she goes, she picks up these stragglers, and they make it up north, and the book ends in this big ass, like I think it's like 10 or 15 or 30 acre place that one of the members of this Earthseed community thing owns, and it's like a heartwarming but not hopeful ending. And that's just the book. In the beginning of the book, they describe her, the one thing that she's different than the vast majority of the other characters in the book, she's got hyperempathy is what they call it in the book. So not only does she feel the feelings other people feel, she describes it as it's so intense that when other people are physically in pain, she can feel that pain. It was so bad that if she saw somebody else bleed, she would start bleeding. But then throughout the story, when you come to learn what this Earthseed is about change and how her version of God is change, it makes sense that she is the one that is discovering this new religion called Earthseed. And that's the thing that was intriguing me the most about this book. But the reason I like this book so much is because once the actual story gets going and they have to start making it up north, it is real. You can feel it. The way that Lauren, our protagonist, our narrator, is describing the situation throughout this entire book, she is such a good narrator because she is insanely objective of the situation that they're in, but at the same time, she wants better for the situation. If you are reading through the dystopian future, you immediately find out that it is me and mine only, but she doesn't see it that way. And it is hopeful that that stays with her throughout the entire book. Another thing I did want to talk about are the dynamics in this book. Because the beginning of the book, like I said, is such a drag, it does give you the option to start to really learn about the characters. Even though by the time the story starts, most of the characters you've already gotten to know have died off, but because you are with the narrator, the protagonist, Lauren, you get a full picture of this girl, of this woman by the time she starts heading north. That when she is relating to other characters, it allows you to understand those characters a lot quicker because you understand Lauren so well at this point. The first character dynamic that I enjoyed was obviously her relationship with her father. She explains right from the get that her father is the best human being, the best person in her life, the one man that's always been there for her. He is a pastor, he is a preacher, and she doesn't believe in whatever her father's religion is in this book. And she is starting this new religion, Earthseed, and she's having this struggle, and she really wants to share this with her father, but she never has the ability to because he ends up dying before she can. She's discovering a new religion. Her father, the closest person to her in this entire world, is a pastor for another religion. I loved that dynamic because she really, before she even opens her mouth to speak these words, she wants to make sure that she is saying exactly how she feels or understands this new religion, Earthseed, as she knows it to be true in her heart. Because you can feel things, but sometimes it's very hard to express that feeling. She only starts to share it when she feels as though she has a good foundation. Her brother Keith, short, right? Because in the beginning of the book, there's not much about him. But when he starts to leave the community, because he's the first one to act out, Lauren describes Keith, her brother, as a psychopath. And when her brother ends up dying after leaving the community because it's unsafe out there, it's such a beautiful way that she describes her feelings for Keith. She speaks about this character like, I hated him. I thought he was a horrible person, but I loved him just as much as I hated him. And to this moment right now, speaking to you, I don't know what that means, but I think it's such a beautiful way to describe it because they are people in your life, in your family specifically, that you don't get along with. But you don't want bad things to happen to them. And that is all from the beginning. Throughout the book, you do get to meet all of these different characters. I do like this relationship too as well with Bancoli because he pushes back on Lauren's idea of Earthseed, forcing her to explain herself so this religion that Earthseed makes sense. But their relationship is, this dude is like a 50-year-old man. When Lauren leaves her home, she's like 18, 19, and they end up being in a relationship. And I know that this is a thing that happens, but when you're reading this book, it is a dystopian future. There's not a lot of options. And she's the one that's very like forthright about wanting to be in this relationship, it still just feels a little uncomfortable. But knowing that they're both about it and it's a gun-ho relationship, good for them. But the thing that I love is just because they are this relationship, he does say, I want to marry you towards the end of the book. It doesn't cloud Lauren's judgment, the religion Earthseed that Lauren is trying to bring to life. And I appreciate that because that is true respect. And if you do love someone, you want them to know your most criticism of the thing that they love the most in the most honest and best way possible. And they go back and forth about this throughout the book. I would like to speak to just the religious aspect of this book. The goal of Earthseed, like I said, is for them to get to the stars. And there's nothing that touches onto this throughout the book. In the book, there's a couple of chapters where they mention something about a space mission that the US is trying to do, and they send somebody up to Mars, but the lady that they send up to Mars dies. I really want to see that aspect of Earthseed grow. It really blows. I know there's only a second book to this. I hope they at least begin to touch on that because I want Earthseed, this new hopeful religion, to be a thing, a change that forces the people in this world to be a little bit better. When I mention how dystopian this future is, it is horrific. Yes, there's this new drug that makes people want to burn things, but gangs run the entire world. There's these insane not communities. Yes, it is a community, but it is a company-owned community. You can only buy and earn money that you can use in this community that the company owns. They pay you, and they don't pay you enough for you to live while paying off the debt. So you basically are enslaved to these communities. On Lauren's path towards north, she picks up a few of these folks that have worked for some of those companies, and it's basically slavery. One of the members that they pick up on the way north, she has 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl, and the 2 boys get taken away by the company because the mother doesn't have the right to say no to where they send any of the employees, her kids being employees. So the mother and the daughter left that they didn't take ends up running away. If you like your action in the beginning of the book, you're going to have to give this book some time. But once the book gets going, once she starts to comprehend what Earthseed is and starts to share her version of Earthseed, it just becomes beautiful. And I did want to just end it on one of my favorite quotes of her description of Earthseed, of God. She says, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. And that's her version of Earthseed. Like, I think that's like the thesis of Earthseed. Octavia Butler's just great, just fantastic. Hard to get through if you're not into dystopian futures or sci-fi, but I enjoyed it. As one of the first true modern dystopian futures, I thought it was a good read. I'd give it probably like 3.5, 4 stars. I'm going to read the second book, not anytime soon. I need a break from all of this death and rape and fucking just murder. It's crazy. There's a portion in this book where they're walking up on this highway and they turn this corner over a tanker and they see 3 kids. One is a little young lady and they say it's like probably in the preteen, teenage years. Number 1, she's pregnant. But number 2, the 3 of those kids are rotating a foot, a leg. They're holding the foot over a fire, roasting it, and they're picking pieces off of this leg, eating it. It is horrific, sad. Just, you are warned, but it is a good book once things get going. Catch you on the flip. Deuces.